I get to the right one on.
It's going.
No, not.
Recording to
Okay.
cloud, or are you recording to your
Yeah.
computer?
I don't know who started it, but it wasn't me.
I did, but it should be to the cloud or the computer?
Cloud.
Yeah, it's going.
But I wanted to wait until we got the right agenda up.
Okay. All righty then, are we all set?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Well, Mr. Secretary, would you like to do the roll?
Christian Guzman,
Here.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Here.
Chris Valle,
Here.
and Vic Christensen here. Full house.
Excellent, excellent. Okay then. Well, is there anyone who'd like to give general public comment on non-agenda items? If you would like to, raise your hand and I will recognize you.
I see Doug Epperhart.
Go ahead, Mr. Douglas Epperhard. How are you?
I am good. How's everybody there? Yeah, just Christian, you and I need to have a little chat about something. So if you could give me a call sometime this week. And what I wanted to say was that at the port president's meeting on last Monday, they announced that the SWA group has been picked as the consultant for the connectivity plan for the waterfront. And I have talked with Lou and I've talked to Elise, and we wanted to have some discussion about coming together on developing a public input plan. Now, there's no great rush because they probably won't actually be awarding the contract until May. But I did want to talk to you about that because we wanted the neighborhood councils and the chamber to sort of get on the same wavelength with regard to an input plan.
Okay,
So-
that sounds.
one other thing with the waterfront, the parking lot by the Maritime Museum is now open and it's free to park there, as well as the promenade, which is, or at least the north part is now open. So just to let everybody know, you can go down to the waterfront and park there when they go to the farmer's market, right, Kristen?
Yeah, that would be a good place to park. Hopefully it's not too windy. It's been pretty windy lately, so.
No, I think
Fire.
the wind has died down. That was about it though, but when you have some time this week, Kristen, give me a call, okay?
I will give you a call and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Exciting stuff on the waterfront.
Alrighty then, anyone else? General public comment. Okay, then if not, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion and addition of agenda items for the March board and stakeholder meeting. So we have some items already up for discussion, so we may as well start with those. Does anyone want to go first on a particular item? Or do we have any questions on A through I?
Well, seems pretty straightforward.
Go ahead, Mr. Craig Goldfarb.
Yeah, we had the discussion on the board about the possible draft review of on the code of conduct, and we had a discussion that we were putting continuing input, and we wanted to put it to the executive board for their input so that we could put something together more for the board meeting. because several people on the executive board had wished that information. I have a more complete draft comment from what we did from the board that I put together. How would you like to proceed?
Well, if there's no immediate necessity to act on the item and the executive board wants to have a chance to weigh in on it, then I suppose we could agendize that for the April meeting of the executive board and then hopefully pass any comments in April. Would that sound okay? Are you, Craig, you can weigh in on that.
What we wanted to do was present this to the board. We wanted to get something out at the board meeting, which was the thing, and then for the next board meeting, and then if we had to refine it or push it up, we'd do it then. But they wanted, basically, that's what was happening, was we wanted to discuss the draft. We had the draft and we prepared a draft comments. And then I've added a little bit to it with some other research I had. And then we wanted to discuss, put it before the executive board before we put it before the meeting. Especially because Chris and Melanie had wanted to put some input in and hadn't been at the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, Craig. So I'll put it to the executive board now, the rest of them. Do you feel comfortable comments at this meeting, or did you want to just mull it over until next Monday and then give some comments? Or did you want to formally write something up in April and then do it in April? Go ahead, Melanie.
I think from what I'm gathering, Craig is saying is I think he'd like to have the screen share ability to share with us now, for us to see what they've come up with now, and then have us put anything else that we want to add. Because I think they're wanting to share this at the next board meeting coming up.
I understand that, but I'm asking, do you three feel comfortable making changes tonight and then voting on them to recommend to the full council, or do you want to wait on it until the future? If you want to do it tonight, we can do it tonight.
I think it's pretty simple. I listened to the video from the bylaws. I was definitely ill from getting my booster shot, and so I couldn't attend their bylaws committee meeting. But there's only one thing, and I don't know if they added it or not, that I have problems with, that I'm not sure if they got to that specific thing on the list. As far as I'm concerned, Chris may have other things, but
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, if there's anything that we'd like, I mean, for me, more discussion, more, so it's, if we're not really under a time crunch, if we want to start now, I was thinking in terms of, I mean, mentally, I was thinking in terms of the next board meeting, but yeah, if we want to kind of kick it off now and extend it, then we can, we'll just be that much farther along. It's fine.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, go ahead.
I was just thinking if there's more to it now than what was on the, what was presented at the bylaws committee meeting, it would have been good to have sent that out to us to be able to look at it and review it before actually going through it here and making substantial comments and, act on it.
Yeah, I think I share Mr. Secretary's opinion, and I think I would prefer to have time to look at it before we discuss it as a group. But if we want to do it tonight, I think we could start, and I would just request maybe we could take up the other items first and then circle back to this, and then we'll give Craig or whoever the screen sharing ability, and then we can do that. What do you think, executive board? And then I see a hand from Laurie Jacobs.
I agree.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I just totally went blank. Yeah, circle back. But that, I mean, that's fine. Again, if we don't have a time crunch, more discussion for me is fine. And oh, I guess so. That's right. I was going to ask if we could have it. Would it be possible or appropriate to sort of review those changes tonight, post them, so that they were available? Or do we have 72 hours before the meeting? That is, could they be posted in time to be agendized for the board meeting, and if we review them tonight?
Okay, so maybe we'll circle. Go ahead, Laurie, and then I'll give my feedback. Go ahead, Laurie.
Oh, thanks. Well, Chris, you are setting the agenda tonight, so you can agendize it. I'm just wondering if the changes that Craig is proposing are minor enough that you could review them right now. If they're very detailed, I could understand wanting to postpone it. But if it's pretty simple and straightforward, then why not take a look at it right now?
Oh, that's what I meant, but I just meant in terms of those materials themselves, those whatever degree to which it's amended, if that would be public early enough to make it relevant for the, I mean, like, would other people have their 72 hours or whatever, if we agreed to put it on the agenda for the board meeting, and then we got that stuff on the website or whatever, would everyone have a chance to look at it before the board meeting? Therefore, would we be talking about something that we'd seen in executive, but they hadn't had the chance to see it?
But Chris, you post it. When you post it, you would post the supporting documents of
Okay,
everything. So
that's what
yeah.
that's what I meant. Yeah.
We have time to post it within the outside the required 72 hours,
Okay.
because I'm planning on, I always try to get it to Christina on the Thursday before, even though we don't have, we can go to the very end at Friday, but I try to get it to her Thursday to get everything out. So we have the time.
Okay, well, yeah, that's all I was just.
Okay, well, let me just say this. There are many ways we could approach this. I mean, the easiest way is to just review it and essentially just say we like it or we don't like it and send it back to the committee or send it to the board. But then we could also have our own amendments to what's already being proposed by the bylaws committee, or we might have a completely different idea from what the bylaws committee came up with. And so then we would recommend that change in addition to whatever the bylaws committed. And then we have to, essentially, the council is the sovereign body, and they have a right to make an additional amendment. So although it would be good to have any kind of amendments proposed beforehand, the council has the right to amend it again during the meeting, because the public might choose to come to that meeting and then say, well, I have this idea that no one thought of yet. So I think we already know this, but I'm just bringing it up again, just so we have it in our heads, that it's always a possibility for an amendment to be on the floor. It's a little longer when that happens, but so let's go ahead and circle back then. And then Craig, if you have that document, maybe you could screen share it after we cover the other items. So let's move on now to the next item. Melanie, do you want to go? You want to do the finance items?
Yeah, basically with the finance stuff, the MER again is going to have to be a motion and a second at the board meeting because it wasn't ready. In fact, it was supposed to be ready today, and I had to contact the city clerk's office, and I just got it because Vic will see the email that I sent out. I CC'd him on it, that everything's always done on time, yet they seem to have problems being on time there. So they hadn't reviewed our credit card charges from mailroom and from the minute taker. And they have to review them before the MER will generate. It's all computer generated. And so the MER wouldn't generate because your accounting department hadn't done their job. So I had to get on them, and they sent me an email, oh, sorry, we were behind, and it's done now and you can generate it now. So yeah. As far as funding rules refresher, this is a recommendation from Octaviano to just make it, because we haven't done a lot of funding stuff outside of the general, MER for mailroom and the general stuff that's our expenses for office, but nobody's really requested money for anything. And so I think it's important that everybody understands the process of how you request it, be it an event or to purchase things, what the procedures are. So just to do like a little mini thing, that'll be about 10 minutes. Just to make sure everybody kind of gets a refresher. It's all in the board member handbook that's online, and everybody got one prior to COVID.
And I think we may have one or two new brand new, like I know David Samperio, I'm not sure if we have anybody else offhand who's brand new, but even though they've done their training, and Vic, right, who hasn't gone through that actual task yet. So it would be worthwhile for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice President, I gotta finish parking the car, so
Oh.
you're gonna take the chat for a bit.
Sure.
Go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
But other than that, that's the only items that we'll be covering for on the port committee requested funding for the air monitors, but they've yet to get me a detailed budget. All they've got is a resolution, which is not enough according to our requirements for budget and finance to get stuff approved. And also what they're going to require, because we're going to have to get a credit card limit increase to purchase these. We're going to need a detailed budget for the city clerk.
Craig, did you have, is that a new hand up for you?
It's been,
Yes.
oh, it is a new hand. Okay.
Okay. Yes, because I was on the committee, I wanted to tell Melanie, I tried to explain to them the process, but they were fighting me every bit of the way. I did some research on it. I think you should send it back to committee.
It did. It got, I had a 2-hour conversation with Octaviano and the city clerk, our funding rep, Shauna. And what it came down to is trying to figure out whether or not it could be funded, which it can, as long as everything's in place properly, as well as there's a couple of things that they recommended for our neighborhood council that we're going to have to kind of sort out, and that's up to the neighborhood council, but it's not something that's going to, hamper funding. It's just things that we need to sort out with as far as the port committee and neighborhood council obligations about securing these, making sure they aren't stolen, making sure that, because there's any place they put this, that's going to be like at a park or at the police station or at sanitation department, they're going to ask of them to sign some sort of waiver of liability where they aren't responsible for it if something happens to it.
Well, at the very least, they're going to need a waiver. They may actually need some insurance because
but
what if something happens in the process of installing these or retrieving
Christian
stuff?
can't sign that.
Yeah.
I
May-
can't sign
May
that.
I,
The port committee can't sign that. Nobody can sign it. It has to come back to me as treasurer, and I have to send it to the contracts person. Then they will send it back with ability to digi-sign it of myself or Christian.
I, I-
I,
Yeah,
if I may, because I was trying to get this together, but they kept pushing. So I was trying to tell them, one, the way they wanted to set it up was these had to be connected to a computer, the ones they were telling you they wanted to purchase. There's another one that's a little bit more expensive that puts it onto a card and you can access through Wi-Fi. And that's the one they should be doing. And we had also discussed setting these up so that we could put them together with a solar array so that they're self-powering with a battery and a solar array. So I was putting together a bill of materials. The problem is, I kept telling them, look, you have to be very precise and we have to get permission And my suggestion is we do, and to you and to your committee and to the board, that we do one of them and work it out and get it placed and make sure the security and everything, and then we could do more.
Yeah, I'm just want to ask real quickly, and I think this might have been something that it'll have to be discussion on the board end of it, and it probably was and should be at the committee end of it. But I guess in terms of the preparation, it sounds like this project is going to need a detailed plan and a manual. I think it speaks to, like, is the neighborhood council tasked with collecting and managing scientific data, which is what this sounds like it is. And if a committee wants to take that on, and it's not my place, certainly not as a member of the committee, to say if they should or not, but it's going to need, like, just being familiar with doing that type of work, whether it's paid or not, and whether, if it's going to be on city property or private property, the liability and all that stuff is a major issue, and it's going to require a much more robust plan than simply how it gets paid for. So that's, in committee, there should be some focus on a detailed functional plan to explain what's good, because that'll be part of getting it approved.
Right. And
Wanna take it
basically
somewhere.
that's what my email covered that I sent to Christian.
Yeah, they're going to need to say exactly how it works, and it's
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of work. I mean, just on the logistical end of it, I'm not going to speak to its the task itself, but however much you can write on it, write it doubly.
Lori?
Yeah, you guys covered most of what I wanted to say. What became apparent when Budget and Finance was looking at this is there are a lot of board members that aren't familiar, or kind of, because of COVID, we forgot the process for funding and events. And I mean, Christian actually is a new board member too, so he hasn't even, so honestly, I don't know if the new board members ever got an orientation, but I think sharing the information of how to do this, showing them where the forms are on the website, because it was a shame that we had to turn it down. Okay, and the Budget and Finance was not evaluating the validity of the request, just the mechanics, because we don't want to waste anybody's time by sending something to the city clerk when we know they're going to burp it right back. So yeah, I think they need a plan. And I was just curious too, when they go to talk about it, if they set this up, is the data automatically recorded into a database? But that's neither here nor there. Mainly it's, let's get everybody on the board familiar with everything that's needed. And this is sort of an unusual purchase, because it isn't just buying some widgets, it's buying some widgets that have some inherent issues that need to cover. So Craig was right, exactly everything he shared, that we need more information. And I don't know if there's a timeliness to this, like they're really anxious to get it going.
Well,
But
just
what's
before the budget year is over with, at least.
right. So I think it's great that if you guys can do a sort of a how to apply for funding an event thing at the next board meeting, I think that would be great. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and the thing is too, that I think the word that they kept using, the city clerk and Octaviano both used, was this is a novel purchase. They kept saying novel. And novel means it's unusual. It's not something ordinary that other neighborhood councils are doing. They said one neighborhood council in the valley purchased these same exact ones, the Purple Air, and that they've had problems with the manufacturer. And just be aware of that.
Yeah, and it's again, my immediate concern, other than the paperwork, is are we an organization that's skilled in doing this type of work? But Vic, go ahead.
I was just gonna, I concur with another thing that Craig said that hasn't been mentioned since he spoke about buying one first and figuring out how to make it work and all that kind of thing before buying any more, to make sure that it really will do what we want and we know how to make it do those things and stuff like that.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, part of this, we wanted to make this in fact, I had reached out to you before. I wanted to discuss with you this project because it's something that I think we should be doing with the schools. And the other portion of it was that Mr. Norman was getting some buy-in from his students, and one of his students was going to put what had money to buy two for himself that I guess was going to end up being put into our array when he got done with his project. So there's more to it, and I think Mr. Norman had some students that would be able to help us with quantifying data and stuff like that. But they do have an online, I don't know what site. I don't know if they showed it to you, where you can
Yeah, I saw
see
it.
this stuff. It's really great. It's a great thing to do. I don't know if it'll do everything we want. It was sort of hard to tell, because this is not a short-term thing. We have to see long-term data. You can't, it's not like you're going to look at it for 2 weeks and have something. You're going to have to look, we're going to have to maintain this over a period of years.
See,
Yeah,
and
that
the
spoke to
other
my
thing
concern
is
about having a
that-
manual
oops.
for, if we were going to start a program that the neighborhood council is taking on, that have a plan that would allow, for instance, if people who started it weren't around anymore to continue it, like the thing would be sustainable and a functional level. I have, in just a couple of minutes, got to switch over to mobile. So Christian, can you take that over?
Yeah, I'm back. I just wondering, I was just about to say, I don't know which agenda item this is.
Yeah.
Is this on the agenda?
Well, this is part of the funding stuff that come up
Okay.
about why funding rules refresher.
I will be back in a few minutes on mobile. Let's hold on, guys.
Very good. In general, I think that it's a good idea for as many of the council members as possible to be knowledgeable of what the funding requires. So I'm in favor of this item. Mr. Secretary?
Just when Craig started talking about those students, it made me think of one other thing. I don't know if they will be willing to do it, but the Science Center might be another possible site to install one for data. But that's something we'd have to look at later.
Exactly, and it can't, and Pat Nave was talking about it going into people's yards, and it can't go in any private person's residence. It has to be in public place or city place.
I tried to disabuse him of that, but he didn't
Okay, well,
understand. Sorry.
Let's come for now. I think that we don't want to talk about a specific funding item because that's not on the agenda, but do we all agree that this in general should be on the agenda to discuss the requirements for funding?
Yes.
Yes,
And I think
Okay. Are there further comments on this item, or should we move on?
move
we
on.
can move on.
Okay. Melanie, did you do all of the funding items?
Yeah, there was just that, the funding requests and then the MER and the budget is it.
Okay.
And then, and then we got to talking about your request that was referred back to committee. It was tabled and referred.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
And you got that in, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. In that case, I think I requested a couple of things for you to consider, and that would be some committee membership adjustments. So they're on the screen. Thomas Norman and Pat Nave want to be on sustainability, and I would like to be removed. And then Dan Dixon wants to be taken off board committee. Does anyone have any feedback on that? Does anyone want to change committee membership? Have you heard anyone who wants to be on a committee or off of a committee? Okay, if not, Mr. Secretary, do you want to talk about the minutes? Did we talk about the minutes yet?
We haven't talked about it, but it's kind of straightforward. We approve the minutes of the previous meeting just like we usually do.
Okay, very good. Well, Other than that, then,
Christian,
we
are you
have-
gonna try and get the city attorney? Are you going to do that?
oh yeah, so that's an item that Steve Huchin or Hukin, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but he wants to be on the agenda. So he's one of the attorneys for the city. I did not mean Mike Fuhrer. I'm sorry if there was a miscommunication on that, but Steve Huchin or Hukin, who's a city employee and an attorney that advises the neighborhood councils, wants to come to our meeting, talk briefly about the Brown Act.
And is he definitely available for the March 14th meeting?
Oh, yes, yes.
So, well, since we're
So would
talking,
that be a presentation probably then?
Yeah, I suppose it would be under the presentations, although he wants to be one of the first people to speak, as do most people in
So
general,
that would be
but
presentations after we take care of, because our public representative, our first responders hurt. He's not gonna be there.
okay.
And
Well, would anyone be opposed if I suggest it to be after the homelessness liaison report at number 4 instead of,
no,
Presentation.
that's fine too.
okay. Can we move number 6 to number 4 and then just move the other ones down? Would that be okay?
are we making it a presentation or just a separate item?
You can call it a presentation. You can call it a presentation. And then Laurie Jacobs, go ahead.
Okay, I guess I see you're moving number 6. Okay, attorney was spelled wrong, Vic. I'm sure you.
And
knew that.
I'm not done yet.
Okay, so just 2 things. One, thank you for giving me an opportunity to do the homelessness liaison report. I've already submitted it. It's about 3 pages. I will try to keep it to a minimum, Christian, but there's a lot to unpack. It's just a matter of how much people want to discuss it. Okay, and then the other question, I just, have we now confirmed that at the next board meeting, public comments will not be on Q&A, nobody can chat, nobody could add comments, is that now fixed?
Nobody can.
Okay, that's great.
And none of the committee meetings have it either.
Okay, so that's great, so that we can be properly Brown acted, so. Okay, and then Christian, when I go to do the homelessness liaison report, if it's too long, just cut me off.
Okay, yeah, let's set aside ideally 5 minutes for the report and then 5 minutes for any comments. Does
Okay, that
sound-
should be more than sufficient. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Okay, does anyone have any comments? Let's see, if there's no comments on the meeting minutes, do we have any reports from the chair of bylaws, or Craig, do you want to weigh in on the approved bylaws changes and standing rules changes? Were you at that meeting? Do you have anything to report on that?
Yeah, they approved that she should have forwarded them to you. Both the bylaws and the standing rule changes. So, if she hasn't gotten to them to you, I'm sure she will. Most of them were pretty minor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. So do we want to circle back then? Mr. Secretary, can you give Craig the sharing ability and then go ahead and share?
Do we want to look at the rest of the draft agenda first? Or
Yeah. Yeah. Finish that and then,
so
Okay, that's fine. Let's finish looking at it.
we've got the usual, move the presentation up. Consent calendar has the same items that were on the.
where are we doing the funding training? You don't have it in there.
I thought,
I thought we were gonna do it right after consent calendar. to separate it from the budget and finance items.
And you're doing that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. We got. Okay, we got the same items under the consent calendar. I'm putting the budget with the public safety because Melanie's doing both of them. Melanie, do you have any idea how long these council files are going to take?
If everybody does what they're supposed to do and go read the motions that are out of city council and then what are each of our thing, it should be easy peasy.
Okay,
They're pretty straightforward.
so that's why I put those together. And then down here, we have the bylaws and planning together. All of the planning ones may, are, like it says, subject to change at the March 9th meeting on Wednesday. So I already told Diana that she's going to need to get me any changes to this ASAP, so we can get the agenda out on time. And she also said that possibly we want to move the code of conduct to the executive committee. Now, whether that's under motions or reports, I put report, but
Oh, there's where funding refresher was. It was at executive committee.
oh, okay. Well, now it's not. So do we want to put the code of conduct in a different place than under bylaws and election, or?
Well, they're the ones that are sending the revisals where it was referred to. So that's where it should come out of.
But do we want it to be, is there going to be any type of motion coming out, or is it just going to be a report? And Craig may have to answer that. I don't know.
I think if we approve it tonight, that it'll be a report if we're okay with the things that they've done. I mean, it'll be a motion to accept it.
Okay, then for now, I will leave it there and highlight it. And then after we're done with Craig's presentation and make a decision, then we can change it if necessary. And then the rest is all the same. So any further discussion or changes on this agenda?
Looks good.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that there so we can come back to it. Oh, I gotta finish, or I gotta stop sharing anyway. So, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And where are you? There you-
Yeah, if you can give Craig the sharing ability, and then Craig, are you prepared to share the changes or the amendments, recommended amendments?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, I've got to promote him to panelist, so he will come back.
Okay. Pat, did you have a question in the meantime?
No, Diana just came in and said she's getting online. If you want her to do the bylaws stuff, she's the chair.
Okay. Well, I think we already gave Craig the sharing ability, so we're gonna let him share that, and then we'll just take some comments on it afterward.
Yeah, Craig, see if you can share. You should be able to.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay. For some reason, I'm not getting Start my video. Okay, now you can see me. Okay, the top one was what was a rough draft out of committee. And then the bottom one in blue was what I just beefed it out a little bit, and I put some more about in there. So you can read through it, or if you want me to read it, I can do that.
Craig, it's interesting because this part at the bottom about legal representation, that's exactly what I was thinking is there's no way for appeal or anything and no legal representation. You know, you're just tried and hung based on an allegation.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and if you look at, the censure policy in the city council's stuff, they can provide witnesses and everything else, which we're not allowed to do. And I thought that was really interesting. They just want to make it like, hey, somebody's going to say something off the wall about you, and then we're going to decide whether you're innocent or guilty. You could say something before, and the rest of it, you got to shut up.
And I see you included here the very thing that I was concerned about it being in one person's hands, be it Raquel or anybody else that after her that comes along, they're the one deciding factor. She is a sole judge and jury.
Could you guys, could someone actually go through and read? Because I can't see the screen, obviously, from where I am now.
Okay, it says, the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council is strongly opposed to the proposed code of conduct. The proposed code is erroneous and inappropriate for elected officials who volunteer their time. Too much time is being spent trying to suppress free speech instead of encouraging it. We are being held to a standard while may be appropriate for employees is not appropriate for an elected official. We are particularly concerned about consequences being applied with no proof of wrongdoing. The proposed policy puts too much power into the hands of one person and takes away the power of the neighborhood councils and stakeholders to address their own issues. It further does not allow for a transparent and open process for the board member and deprives them from due process. The stakeholders' wishes and concerns are being ignored by placing us under an opaque bureaucratic process without a fair appeal process and without any legal representation or advice from the city attorney. We support the existing code of conduct and propose that the way to address violations of the code of conduct may be addressed through the censor policy rather than setting up a new process. There may be a need, however, for some changes to the censor policy to address this, including the addition to appeal rights. There may also be a need to establish training and a process for conflict resolution.
Yeah, I think that really touches on like basically all of my concerns. The only thing that I thought the phrase about suppressing free speech was maybe a little aggro on our part, but that if it's happening de facto, then it really doesn't matter. I think that really does kind of hit it all, and I think that the inclusion of the requirement for some kind of training and the appeals, ultimately, whatever, if they decide to modify it, there's going to be some new judicial process, and like any other one, making it clear what the rules are and having a sort of a relief valve for what happens after an initial judgment, I think is a really good addition.
Yeah, I could get behind this, Craig, 100%.
Lori's got her hand up.
Very well written. I agree with it. The only thing like part of me wants to say is this is like giving the fox the right to watch the hen house. She's just the general manager is overreaching once again. But no, I would think that the board would go along with this. I don't see any wordsmithing needed. Good job.
Thank you. I
Okay.
did make
Comment?
those adjustments. So as you can see in the blue, but great. If you want, we can push this board to the board. This was one of the reasons it didn't come out of committee. We didn't vote on it. So if you want to vote on it here, or you just want to present it to the board and see if we can get a second at the board meeting, either way would be fine.
Okay, any other comment from the
We
public?
should vote on it here, Christian, and just that way send it to the board.
Okay, let's see if there are any from the public that want to comment on, and then we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. All right, listening to it, I think that I generally am in favor of everything. However, I just would like to know, Craig or Diana, what is the approximate timeline on this? Do we know yet on when the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners or the City Council are gonna approve of this? And then do you think that the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners are gonna make any further amendments? And then we would have to make a further comment on this, because if it's gonna be highly amended still, then maybe we wanna just wait on it like for another month or two. But if not, then I would say, let's act on it now. I see two hands. Let's see here. Go ahead, Diana Nave.
Did you call me?
Yes, go ahead, Diana.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear my name. I didn't hear what name. My understanding is it may not be acted on anytime soon. There are still things being discussed, but we felt it was important to get this before them now while they're still in that consideration phase.
Okay. Go ahead, Laurie Jacobs.
I thought Ray, who is a bond commissioner, said they were going to start looking at it in April, but they did want to give neighborhood councils plenty of time. So you might want to check with him at the board meeting. He might have a timeline, but they haven't actually printed a timeline. And the other thing you need to make sure, if you're making a statement on this to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, that it gets posted to the Empower LA site, because Bonk has been very negligent on posting CISs in a timely manner so that other neighborhood councils can see what we're weighing in on. Somebody needs to follow up.
Okay. Go ahead, Melanie. Did you have an additional comment? Or was that
Yes,
your hand?
Ray had said that the bonk is what Lori said. That's what he told me too, that in April, they're gonna start looking at input from neighborhood councils. This has to be, and I'll do that because I'm the CIS person, is loaded up to be filed for a CIS under the bonk city council file thing. So it's there, so they see it. And that way we get our input in, that all neighborhood councils, they want to input on the current draft that they have at this time though.
Yeah.
Okay. Douglas Epperhard, go ahead.
Yeah, I just was going to say, LANC, the LA Neighborhood Council Coalition, passed a motion actually fairly similar to this at the meeting on Saturday. And it essentially revolves around the whole lack of due process thing. So you're kind of right in line with LANC. In terms of community impact statements, at the, not the last bonk meeting, but the one prior to that, I actually read off the list of neighborhood councils that had filed community impact statements opposing the code of conduct amendment, but which were not on their website. And they also had one that was filed as being in favor of the code of conduct when they were in fact against it. So you might want to follow up and check the website to see if your CIS had ever appeared, which it had not as of, I think, a month ago. And if not, you might want to send a separate communication to the email of the bonk, because when I'd had this conversation with Ray, he said yeah, he said a lot of the neighborhood councils, he said they're not posted on the website. And he said, we didn't realize there were that many. So just to let you
Wow.
know.
Well, thank you for letting us know that. It's extremely important to have our statements able to be read by the public and the commissioner. So let's work on that then. Well, is there a motion to approve this as is? Or
So
actually,
moved.
yeah, I guess the motion would be, is there a motion to recommend this to the full council?
I
Yeah, so
second,
moved.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any comment then? Further comment?
I'll send it to you, Vic, in an email, the blue copy. Okay,
Okay. Do you mind if I make some very nitpicky punctuation changes? It will not change the meaning whatsoever.
no problem. I mean, it, you know, if, as long as it's within line.
Well, I
I
mean,
have-
like in the third to last line in the second paragraph, stakeholders, it should be S apostrophe instead of apostrophe S, things like that.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
I
I'm
just wanted
surprised
to ask you now.
I'm surprised I got it as right as I did, so.
I just wanted to ask you now, so nobody was surprised if there were a few minor tweaks like that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, well, all those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Any opposed? All right, then, so we'll forward that on to the full council for further discussion. Are there any other additions? Are there any further additions to the agenda next week that we would like to see? Raise your hand and I'll recognize you if you have any further additions. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting then?
so
So
moved.
moved.
I second it then.
Okay, very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? This meeting is adjourned then, and we will see hopefully all of you at our next Monday full council meeting of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Night.